wanted to take a moment to talk about data screens and why I chose the Garmin 820 over the Wahoo Element Bolt. So this is the 820. It's a pretty good upgrade from the Garmin Edge 810, which I used to have. The 810 was pretty, it seemed like a 1990s style biking computer interface. It was pretty antiquated, and it felt clunky and awkward, and the absolute failure point of the 810 was that I would occasionally lose rides. The whole computer would get overwhelmed or something with the data processing I was asking it to do, and it would just turn off, and I would lose the data, which was extremely infuriating, enough so that I was actually prompted to just scrap it all together and go to the Wahoo Element Bolt, which I did and was happy with for a while, but ultimately the Wahoo Element Maps feature was just not strong enough to do what I want to do and to accomplish my goals. Wahoo could definitely make some upgrades and some changes to their mapping functions so that it was on par with what like this 820 has built into it. But currently the Wahoo Element Bolt, which maybe I'll pull up for a comparison, it's just so weak. Just like the breadcrumb trail setup that it has is just, it leaves so much to be desired. If you're navigating on the fly and you need to, for instance, reroute something that you're doing. Case in point would be actually when I was biking to New York City, was going on the Blue Ridge Parkway, which ended up being closed due to Hurricane Irma, and I wasn't able to do any kind of rerouting with the Element Bolt because I can't move the map around, and I'll show in a minute what I mean by that. Ultimately, with the Element, if I needed to reroute anything, I would have to take my phone out, and so anytime one device necessitates the use of another device, I think that's a pretty big flaw in the design and the functionality. I shouldn't have to take my phone out in order to... Oh, Egg's getting mad. Egg, what are you mad about? I know what she's mad about. She's mad about the Wahoo Element Bolt's map capabilities. So anyway, one device, if you have a really, really well-made device, you should be able to do everything that you need on it without having to get another one out. And so that brings us to data screens. I won't go into everything that the 820 can do because that doesn't really matter. Aside from the way you set up the Edge versus the Bolt, they have very, very similar data screens and data points and metrics and all those things. The Garmin, you do it on the unit itself, which again isn't the best system. Once you get a hang of how it works and the way in which you have to work it, it makes sense, and it is pretty nice because you can actually change data fields in the field, like while you're biking. Whereas with the Element Bolt, you'd have to take your phone out and pair it, make the updates to the way you want your display to look, and then have all that information transfer over from your phone to the Element. This one you can just do if you want. For instance, if you want a different field here, all you have to do is go to the settings on the device, and you can make that update, and then you can see it very quickly. God damn, Egg. So these are my data screens that I use, and they're all kind of strategically made. This is the screen that I use if I'm not needing to look at a map. I've got like instantaneous speed, the grade, distance, time of day, total ride time, and the distance to my next cue, which would be the next turn that I have to make. The only real complaint I have about the Garmin in this configuration for this data page, which I have a analogous one on my Bolt, is that the grade, the percentage grade of any hills that I'm climbing isn't very instantaneous, and it's kind of, I would use the word again, clunky. When I'm going up a hill, if I know the hill is like 7, 8, 11, 12%, sometimes this grade won't show that number and reflect how much effort I'm putting in real enough time for it to help me at all. Like, not that I necessarily look at the grade to actually choose my gear or anything like that, but I like to look and get an intuitive sense of what 11% feels like, or 15%, or 5%. And so the sluggishness with this to update in real time is sort of disappointing, because that is another strong suit of the Bolt. The Bolt was very quick with showing what the instantaneous grade was, and it wasn't even really it wouldn't hold a number. It kind of fluctuated a lot, which at the time I didn't really like, because it would go really from it would really show the grade in the change of the grade as you went up the hill. So it might start at 3 and then jump up to 5 and then 12 and then 14 and then 13 and then jumping around a little bit. But I think ultimately I'd prefer that over having this number just not update quick enough if the hill is not short, or if the hill isn't long enough. So this is sort of just a general information screen. Not very important, but again, all these data pages have analogous setup on my Bolt. Average speed, distance to destination, so that's going to be the end of the course that I'm currently following with my maps. Temperature, direction I'm heading, battery life. Pretty self-explanatory. And so this is the map screen. We'll go back to that in a second, because that's really where I want to spend a little bit more time explaining the strength of, and this is an elevation chart, so total ascent, current elevation, and then back to the original screen. I spend most of my time on the map screen, and this is very strategically set up. So this is bare bones. So we'll get into the map section and the display in just a second, but so you can configure 2 data points on your Garmin map. And so for me, so that I don't, maybe I should go ahead and just make this light stay on all the time so I don't have to keep fucking pushing it. Okay. That should help keep things in focus too. Alright, so again, strategic, because, when you're going and following a route, you don't always want to, you don't want to get fixated on data points. So I stripped down, when I went to New York, the data that I would see on my map screen as much as possible, so that I could focus on the actual ride itself and not be counting down miles or looking at speed or average speed or anything like that. So ultimately, time of day is important, because I need to know what time it is. And figure out kind of how I'm doing. I can do those calculations in my head. Basically, time of day is here so that I can kind of figure out how much time I feel like I have left, and sort of a general sense of average speed. And total ride time right here gives me an idea of how long I've actually been working. And so, it's like sometimes you can feel like a ride is a lot longer than it actually has been, or vice versa. It's been really, like, you feel like it hasn't been very long, but it's been a couple hours or so. So those 2 are like the most basic data points that I can stand to see that won't drive me crazy when I'm out doing some sort of a route. And so, that said, we can get into the map function now and really show how superior it is. And specifically, it's one function on this map that really lends it to being superior over the Wahoo Element Bolt, in my opinion. So, first of all, generally speaking, the fact that these roads are all named to varying degrees, like you can see Francis Avenue, Boulevard, Inglewood, that just shows up by default. So that has nothing to do with a route that I've selected. That has nothing to do with the maps that I've downloaded onto this unit, because this all comes base. This is all stock. So you get this map just by buying it. There's no extra cost. And with Wahoo, there's no extra cost either. But for instance, if you were to look at this screen on the Wahoo, there would be no information here. You would just see lines. And in fact, I'm going to go grab my Wahoo and I'm going to pull it up so that we can look at both of them at the same time and get an idea of what you would see on the Bolt versus the Garmin. Alright, so I've got the Garmin, or the Bolt rather, pulled up now. And as you can see, very similar sized units. And on the Bolt, again, like I was mentioning, I have all the same data points and pages throughout the unit. So this is that main page with the sort of, I don't know, really nuts and bolts data about the ride. Whoa, jumping around. I guess I'll just hold it. So, and then that second screen, again, miles to go, temperature, battery, average miles per hour. This is the elevation page, which again, their gradient readings are more instantaneous and more accurate. But now we go to the map, and this is where things really, really fall apart. So I do like that on the Bolt, at the top of it, you get 4 data points. I think that's great. And you really don't sacrifice too much of the map, even by having all of those data points. So I was able to have grade, distance to queue, so the next turn, time, and then ride, which again, that's the same that I have down here. Total ride time, and then clock. So the issue really is just the lack of information, especially if you're in an unfamiliar place, just all these lines. It just doesn't help. And you lose specificity really quickly. So like on the Wahoo, you can zoom in and out, but the more you zoom out, obviously, the less you're able to see in a specific area, and you cannot move the map around, which again I'll show in the 820 what exactly I mean by that here in a minute. But you lose resolution very quickly, so we can actually show real quick. So this is as zoomed in as it gets, and so again, very little data, just lines. You zoom out 1 click, again a little bit more information, still just lines. So we're 3 clicks, still just lines, no real information, no way to move the map around to reorient where you are in relation to where you might want to go. 4 clicks, a little bit more information, starting to lose resolution, not really a good sense of like where you might be trying to go. Again, there's no way to go north, south, east, or west to see if any of these roads connect if you're trying to figure out something on the fly. And then 1 more click, and it's gone. Then now you've zoomed out enough to see some major roads and where the major roads connect. However, all the little roads are gone now, so you can't. This is the point where if I was trying to do a reroute, I'd have to pull out my phone because I've lost resolution. I don't know where any of these smaller roads here, if I can zoom back in, I don't know where any of these are going to connect to these larger roads if I need to make a reroute. And so that is the weakest point for the Wahoo Element Bolt, in my opinion. That's the reason why I switched back to the Garmin. And although I still, for like general people, if they ask for my opinion about which computer they should get, typically it's if they should get either the Edge 520, the Garmin Edge 520, or the Wahoo Element Bolt, I'll still suggest the Bolt. I think the Bolt is definitely a better modern computer, and most people aren't using these computers the way that I am. And so I think overall it's a better product. And so it is just sort of it's a disappointment, it's a bummer that it falls short in this one area. And it falls short so much, so dramatically and so drastically, that I had to go back to Garmin with my tail between my legs in order to get what I wanted. Because I knew Garmin had this feature. I knew that their maps were more powerful. And maybe that's just a testament to where Garmin is coming from as a, I don't know, GPS manufacturer. But I'll now show you why the Garmin is better in this respect. So you click the screen and you have a zoom in and a zoom out, just like you have on the Bolt. Let's see if I can get this to not be so fucking washed out. Okay, so you can, Jesus, what the fuck? Why is it putting all zoom? Okay, this is definitely not the best. Let's see if I can move this around. Alright, so you can zoom in and zoom out. And this is all pretty similar to the Element. I mean, you have a lot more zooming in that you can do, and similarly, Jesus, this is one of the reasons why Garmin isn't so great. The capacitive screen things or whatever. But okay, so you can zoom in and zoom out just like you can on the Wahoo. and again, you do lose resolution at a point, but you push this little hand icon, and then you can move the map around independent of your current location. So I'm right there, and if I need to get somewhere else that's away from my current location, I can scroll on the screen and I can watch these little lines, and they're also named for the most part, so I can figure out where a road is, and I can follow it on this, and I can zoom in and zoom out as needed. Is that the point where I lose resolution? Maybe. This is hard. And so I can move the map around, and I need to get rid of that stupid little pen. I can move the map around, and I can find where these lines connect. And again, they're named for the most part, so I can actually look for a name. I can say, okay, I need to go straight on US 56, and that's going to connect to Country Road Lane, and then Country Road Lane is going to take me back over to US 56 or something like that. So I'm able to do that on here, and again, that's functioning in like the same way as I guess my cell phone would be whenever I'd have to pull it out in order to do reroutes when I was using the Wahoo. So I always wanted to take an opportunity, I wanted to take a moment before my pho gets here to talk about why ultimately I'm a bigger fan of Wahoo than I am of Garmin, but why this one functionality difference makes me have to go back to Garmin. I have no choice. It gives me what I need, and in this instance, this one need is more important than the other great benefits that the Wahoo provides. And so, go to sleep, little Garmin. And so, in conclusion, I would love it if Wahoo was able to update their map functionality, make a stronger sort of adventure-oriented product. I know that the Wahoo Element Bolt is sort of made in the same vein as the 520, the Garmin 520. It's for, competitive cyclists who are trying to compete. So if Garmin, or if Wahoo rather, was able to make some sort of adventure-oriented product, and the original Wahoo Element, I don't believe has any different map functionality as opposed to the Element Bolt. So this is just something that's missing out of the Wahoo lineup, and it's something that I would be glad and happy to see them, institute into their actual lineup. Open up another side of the market. I know that we're out here, we exist. Those of us who might love Wahoo but just don't have enough power, or not enough empowerment through the product itself to stick with it, that's basically my piece. I felt like this is an important difference between these two, both functionally and just as products, and I just wanted to sort of document it because it's something that I feel like, if addressed, could be a powerful new advent. I don't think advent. Just a new approach for Wahoo to consider, and maybe it's in the works. Who knows? Got a few friends who work over at Wahoo, and so maybe they have some surprises that will be coming out in the coming months and years that they know about that I don't. But in the meantime, sadly, gotta say goodbye to the Wahoo and just continue with the Garmin. Did my first 200-mile ride yesterday, and I don't believe I had to do any reroutes or anything like that, but there's no doubt that I would have been less comfortable with the whole ride if I was depending just on the Wahoo. So that is my piece, and I'm gonna wait for my pho to get here, and I'm gonna eat the fuck out of it. So take care, future me, and remember this day when you called out Wahoo on their bullshit and inspired them, or perhaps just put the idea in their mind that they could make more money by appealing to another market by adding a very, very small additional feature to their map functionality. All right, take care. Bye.